Howdy, fella. I don't like where this is placed, actually. I got it. We don't need this directly in front of my face. Let's move that. Howdy, fellas, and welcome back to the channel. Now, you may have noticed that, my channel's been pretty dead for the last, 2 to 3 months, right? You might be saying, well, what the hell happened here, Ginger Side Quests? And I actually went on vacation, right? Cool, right? I had a good time, watched a lot of good films and stuff, right? But the one film that I actually watched, right, that I really, really enjoyed and really stuck with me is the topic of today's video, K-pop Demon Hunters. This film is fantastic. I just wanted to talk about it, and so, yeah, just making a video, yapping about it, and, yeah, I don't know. So before we get into the, the meat and potatoes of this film, animation, style, characters, music, my opinions, right? Because, I'm a very opinionated man, right? Kind of have to be to, own a whole YouTube channel just about, yapping, right? But, before we get into all that stuff, right? I just wanted to, do a little bit of a drink test with you, if you will, right? So, I have recorded this video already, right? Recorded it the last 2 days. It was really good, though. I liked it. I was like, cool, this is gonna be a great video, right? People are gonna like this video a lot, right? And then I realized that the audio wasn't recording the whole time, so I gotta re-record it now. That's right, friends. This is the second time doing this. I want to die. In that video, I already did a drink test, and that one was just for fun. I just wanted to, have a few drinks because I've been gone for a really long time, so I wanted to, try American drinks for the first time again in a while. This time, right? This drink is not for your enjoyment. It's so I don't and this might because I wanted the Baja Blast, right? And they were out of Baja Blast, so I have to get Diet Mountain Dew, which might be the worst thing ever created by man. So, yeah, cheers to not off myself, I guess. That's disgusting. Another point of reference, I am standing in front of a whiteboard because I was going to use the whiteboard, right? And then I realized, one, my marker is too crap to actually make it legible for you guys, so that's kind of tragic. And two, I don't have any whiteboard spray, so yeah, I can't use the whiteboard now. So this video is already off to a great start, guys. Yippee! Okay, so anyway, let's talk about the subject of today's video, K-pop Demon Hunters. Specifically, let's talk about our first section, which is animation and style. Now, this film has great animation style across the film. I think that this movie specifically is some of the best animation that I've seen in a really long time, especially from Sony Animations themselves. Like, besides the two Spider-Verse films, I think this is probably the third best looking film I've seen from them, and probably the fourth best I've ever seen in general when it comes to animation. And the third one would definitely be Puss in Boots 2. This film in general just has so many cute little details in it that really emphasize the style and the animation specifically. I mean, you have Zoe's eyes with the popcorn gag, right? We have hearts biting old grandmas and people when the Soja Boys are performing Soda Pop, right? But then also my favorite detail probably, which is a more subtle one and less, less fun, more serious, is that Rumi's hair gets slowly more, disheveled and messy as her mental state slowly deteriorates and goes away throughout the film. It's a really good detail. And that last one specifically isn't only specific to this film. I think in general this film has a lot of really good details that are only in this film and gives it such a unique style and kind of its own vibe and feel to it like no other film I've ever seen. But I won't lie to you guys, right? This film does have a lot of really cool details, and that is part of the reason why I like this film so much. But the other part of why I love this film is the colors. So, I'm a pretty stupid guy, right? I'm running human software on monkey hardware, right? If I see, a lot of fun colors, there's just a neuron in my brain that goes boom, right? I'm like that monkey with the symbols, right? Going like this in my brain. And, if I see colors, my brain goes boom, right? And this film has so many fun colors, right? I mean, look at these colors. Look at these ones. Look at these ones. Look at these ones. Look at this frame right here. Now, to me, I'm not pointing at anything. So I hope I put something cool in here, because if I didn't, then I'm going to look like an idiot. There's so many colors in each and every frame of this film, and it makes it such a unique kind of style of film. Because every single frame has so many blacks and grays in them, but also has so many neon colors and bright colors, and they really work to emphasize each other, making this film feel like it's so vibrant and deep, even if it really doesn't use that many colors in the grand scheme of things. It just really uses them excellently and makes them feel so alive and vibrant, like almost no other film I've ever seen before in my life. Another thing I really like about this film is the character designs, for the most part. We'll get to the ones I don't like here in a few minutes, but just so you know now, I really, really like the three main girls' character designs. I think that Rumi's character design is really cool, right? I like her long braid. Don't know what it is with strong female characters having long, luxurious braids recently, but I'm all here for it because the braids are pretty cool, right? You have Mira, and Mira is definitely my least favorite of the three, but she's really still pretty cool, right? And then Zoe. I love Zoe. She's my favorite character in this film, and one of my favorite characters I've seen in any recent piece of media. I think that she's, perfect from her character design to her characterization to the way she sings to almost everything about her is perfect in this film. The only thing that isn't perfect about her is that I wish she was more in this film, but we're going to talk about that later. We're not talking about that, that boring stuff right now. We're just talking about the fun, surface level things like the animation. Disgusting. Anyway, another thing I really like about this film is, just the way it uses smear frames and stretch and squash. I think that this film uses really, really good smear frames. Like, I don't think it uses them quite as good as Spider-Verse films, which makes sense. It definitely had a smaller budget, obviously, but it still uses them really, really effectively and better than most other films I've seen. I mean, just look at some of these look at some of these smear frames like this one. It's just a really good smear frame, right? Stretch and squash is also used a lot. The main example that I saw in the film was definitely the intro, specifically when Rumi was jumping out of the plane and she kicked that, demon in the face. Thought that was a really good example of, stretching someone's character design. I think it looked really, really good in that scene. In general, too, the action is actually pretty good in this film, which I didn't really expect because, guys, I'm gonna be honest. It's a film about K-pop and demons. Like, why would the fight scenes go that hard? They don't need to go that hard, but they still went pretty hard, and I really appreciate that. My only main gripe with the animation and style, and it's more a style thing than animation, because the animation film was like always high quality. The style though, the Soldier Boys, right? The Maroon 5 knockoff, right? So first off, Junior's design is perfectly fine, right? You have these two other ones. I don't remember their names, right? But they're also fine. But then you get to these two. I think one of them is Mystery, I believe, right? And Mystery's design is just not that good, guys. Like, I'm gonna be honest here, right? His design doesn't really feel like it fits into this, into this world. Which I guess in a case it really shouldn't actually, because they are demons. So I guess they're not technically from, Earth, I guess. But also, like, it doesn't even look like it belongs in this film at certain points. Like, I think that it's a fine design on its own. It's a little bit too wacky for my liking, but it's still it's still decent. But I just don't like it much because I don't think it fits in this film at all really well. And also, whenever he's in the film, or this guy, right, this other guy, for example, I'm really pulled out because I'm like, whoa, those designs don't fit at all. What happened here? Why are they in the film? And I'm still not sure why, to be honest. I just don't really like those. I think the Soldier Boys in general are kind of the weak part of this film, And this we're talking about Genu. Genu, we'll get to Genu later. But unless it's Genu, the Soldier Boys in this film are pretty weak. So yeah, that's kind of tragic, but that's how it is. Okay, and this is where we get to the fun part of the film, right? Are you guys ready? Buckle your seatbelts, guys, because this part is going to go crazy. Now we're talking about, the story and the themes. This film, in general, has fantastic storytelling. I think that there isn't many flaws in its storytelling, right? For example, I'm just going to start, with a vague plot summary because one of the first things I want to talk about is the pacing. So the pacing of this film vaguely goes like this, right? You have, your Huntrix, right? That's the K-pop girl band, right? They have they're on a plane, right? They jump out of the plane. They, sing a song, performance in a stadium, right? Then, they do the performance in the stadium. They kind of leave, right? They drop the Golden music video, right? Which Golden is one of the songs in the film, right? They drop Golden, and then they find it, think like Maroon 5, but K-pop. That's basically what the Soldier Boys are, right? They find the Soldier Boys, right? The Soldier Boys drop a song. They don't like the song. They fight, right? And then you have the middle of the film, right? Where basically, Rumi's like, oh no, my voice doesn't work. What do we do, guys? So they go to, a vocal doctor, which, fun fact, the vocal doctor is from the Asian guy, is played by one of the characters in the MCU, which I thought was just really funny because he kind of just appears in everything. I think he's also in Parks and Rec. Just random. But yeah, you get that, and then a bunch of stuff happens in the middle, and you have your finale. I don't want to talk about this middle piece right here. It's like kind of nothing happening because the entire middle part of this film is basically just her voice hurts. They fight a little. She litter. Holy, there is not a litter of cats in here, guys. I don't know what I'm yapping about. We need another break. Mountain Dew Baja. This is Mountain Dew Baja Blast. This is diet Mountain Dew, bro. Disgusting. Okay. Anyway, brief intermission done. The middle part, right? They go to the vocal doctor, right? She's like, oh no, my voice hurts. What are we gonna do? He sells her some supplements, right? She takes the supplements, right? Then they fight the Soldier Boys, and then she finds out that Genu's like kind of hot and kind of cool, right? Genu finds out her secret that she's part demon, which that's like the main driving conflict of the film is that she's part demon. And then, yeah, a bunch of stuff happens. She meets up with him at night because he's like, I can help you understand, right? I can be good for you, whatever. Slowly falls in love, right? While everything around her is like deteriorating because they're dropping like a diss track towards the Saja boys, right? That's Huntrix. They're dropping a diss track towards the Saja boys. A bunch of stuff happens. It's all fine, right? It's perfectly fine. But my issue is just how it's paced. Because specifically parts where it's like, Jinu and Rumi, I feel like they're not really always the most naturally flowing, if you will, right? Kind of feels like this film is trying to be Lightning McQueen in the middle, right? And then the other parts are trying to be Mater, right? So these parts on the end, they're kind of going like pretty slow, right? And they just zip through the middle, which, on one hand, kind of don't really mind because I think that conceptually the middle is kind of the weakest part, The beginning, especially, the plane scene at the very start is fantastic. And the ending is also really, really well done. And the middle is just, perfectly fine. So on one hand, I guess I don't mind if they try and, like Usain Bolt the way through the middle, but like, probably should slow it down a little bit, specifically when you see Genu and Rumi, because those parts of the film, I won't lie, guys. I'm not a huge romance guy, right? Pretty cute, right? They are good together, right? I like them together conceptually. And the moments they do have, right, are really good together. They just don't happen very often, and they're also very quick when they do happen. I think they could have, expanded on that. They could have, like, if this middle of the film is like, 40 minutes, right? They could have, like, cut 5 minutes off, added 5 minutes of Junior Rumi, and then bada bing, bada boom, your romance is just a little bit better, right? But I think, would have helped the overall film, especially with the emotional side, because, while the emotions here are very high, right? You're like, whoa, I care about these characters, right? All that good stuff that comes with films. Sometimes it's like, I care, but it's like a little bit rushed. So if they just slowed it down like, a little bit, right? It would have been good, right? Still, Usain Bolt in the middle, it's fine because it's the most boring part of the film, right? But then, right, you get kind of to the part that aren't really just like anything's happening, especially that back half of the second act, which, I know that's kind of when like you're still building up, but you're kind of getting to the climax, so like not everything's gonna happen all at once, right? But like here, it's just kind of painfully slow at some points because you're like, okay, do we need 3 scenes in a row of just like basically Junior Rumi, Huntrix making their song, them getting embarrassed publicly by the Saja boys, and then repeat that? Like, do we need like doing 6? And yeah, granted, there are 6 very short scenes, right? But the pacing is just a little bit off in the middle. I feel like sometimes, like it's very quick, right? It's a good, it's good if you want to watch the film very quickly. But if you're trying to like slow it down a little bit, enjoy it, sometimes it feels a little bit rushed, right? And in general, I can also say that about the finale. The finale of this film, right? Don't get me wrong, I really like this finale. But I do feel like in some ways, the finale of this film happens back to back to back to back with like no emotional low moments, right? For the characters, no like pacing low moments, especially like right around here when Genu sacrifices himself. There should be like maybe a couple seconds, like 10, 15 seconds where she's, a little bit upset and then everything happens after that. I think it would help with the pacing like a little bit, but overall, ending is still really, really good, and I like how it ended. Speaking of, I've been talking a lot about Junior and Rumi, so let's talk about them, right? So, yeah, we're gonna talk about Junior and Rumi now, right? They're really cute, I already said that, right? Cool. This is not surprising to anyone. They're really cute in the trailers and stuff. They're actually really cute in the film, right? I want to talk about how they're actually handled, like, pretty well by my standards. So, yeah, first off, let's talk about, the arc that they are, right? They're an enemies to lovers, right? And usually, I hate enemies to lovers, right? Like, I just don't think it's good, right? I find it pretty boring, right? But for some reason, right, this enemies to lover, right, tickles my brain. And I'm not sure why, right? Because this enemies to lover, right, is pretty weird. Because technically, it's a double enemies to lovers. Because, it's like demon, so it's like, he's a demon. I'm good, I gotta kill the demons, right? So he's my enemy. But it's also an enemies to lover in the sense that, like, oh, he's a competing musician, like, boy band, right? He's gonna take over my music, right? I gotta, like, take him down. So technically, it's a double enemies to lovers, right? Which you would think I would hate even more. But for some reason, I actually like it in this film. And I don't know if, like, those chemtrails that conspiracy theorists talk about, right? Don't know if those chemtrails, like, sprayed on my head when I was watching this film and it, like, messed with my brain chemistry, right? But, like, for some reason, I really like this enemies to lovers, right? And usually they're not very good because if you break down enemies to lover, right? Usually it goes something like this, right? You have stage 1, enemies, right? Usually in this stage, right, they're just like fighting each other, right? And they're like, I hate you, you're a bad person, right? Bada bing, bada boom, fight, whatever, right? Then stage 2, hot enemies, right? This is usually when they're like, I still hate you, right? But I low-key won't die though. Stage 3 is friends, right? They're friends. They're like, emotionally attached to each other, right? They're like, cool, right? You're actually pretty nice, right? You have a good dick game. I like you, right? Bada bing, bada boom, right? You're hot, right? Stage 4 is lovers, right? And this stage, right, usually is the most important one. It's the most emphasized one, rightfully so, because romance is usually pretty, romance is pretty cute, right? It's pretty cute, especially if you're single, right? But this film right here, right, it kind of like cuts out the enemies part, right, and just says, enemy stage? Nah, he's just hot from the beginning, right? So you kind of go from a 4-stage process to a 3-stage process, right? And I really appreciate that. Because personally, I find enemies to lovers annoying because I know how it's going to end. So the fact they just cut this out and they're like, nah, you already know what's happening, right? He's just hot, right? I appreciate that, right? And because of that, I think that the enemies to lovers here is actually like pretty good because she already likes him. She already thinks he's hot, right, at the start of the film. And it's like very well established, Every single shot of this dude is him like going crazy, bro. He's like, looks maxing, he's like, he's going crazy, right? He's like, bro, he's fucking going crazy at the start of this film, right? So it's already established she finds him hot. So her finding him hot, right? And then thinking that he's actually like cool and loving him, right? That makes sense to me, right? It also helps that, he's hot and she's hot. It just makes sense, right? They make good lovers, right? I think that especially like once they actually, they never really get together because he does get like stabbed, I guess, right? But like once they're like, romantically intertwined, right? They're pretty cool, right? I like them. They're cute together, right? I think, spoilers, right, for the songs later. Free is a really cute song, right? I like them together. They're cool, right? They kind of emotionally help each other. I like that they're, character flaws kind of, parallel each other because she's like, I'm part demon, but I'm also human. How do I, like, fix this, like, problem? And then he's like, I'm part demon and part human, but I'm part demon because I, like, killed my wife and son. Never mind. It's my mom and sister. I fixed it, guys. Don't worry. I almost said his mom or his wife and son. Don't worry, guys. I did it. So I think that it parallels each other, pretty well. And I like the enemies to lovers in this story, right? I think it's, can't really emphasize it more. I keep repeating myself, but it's good, right? It's solid like 7 out of 10, love story. I already alluded to this earlier, right? But I hate these boys, dude. First off, right? They're just Maroon 5, but Korean, right? Let's get that out of the way, right? They're literally just Maroon 5, right? So from now on, this is not Soldier Boys, right? This is Maroon 5. That's what I'm calling them, right? 1. But also 2, what is their role in this film, right? We do not need these guys besides Jinu, right? First off, right? These 4, right? Pretty much do nothing except be love interest for Rumi and Zoe when they didn't need one because these two are the most lesbian coded of all time. 1, right? But also 2, they do nothing in the film like thematically or like pacing wise, right? The only important one is literally Jinu. So like, why not just make him a solo artist and then he bodies all 3 of the Huntress girls, right? Because then it's cooler. It makes them seem like, a cooler character. And they just keep it all in, and they can have Zoe and Mira be lesbians, right? Because they're already lesbians, basically, let's be honest, right? So, like, I don't know why these 4 exist in the first place, right? But then, right, you get to the part where at the very end, at your idol, they just, like, all jump in for no reason, and they make the fight, like, way longer than it has to be, and I don't get why they're here in this film at all. Like, I get they want, K-pop girl band, K-pop boy band, right? But like, look at these Maroon 5, right? It should be the Maroon 1, okay? Cut 4 of these guys, right? That's my one gripe with this film is that I feel like the Saja Boys conceptually are unnecessary. But I will say, I do like the name Saja Boys, so they get points for that. Howdy, fellows. An outfit change. That's right. It's a new day. New outfit, right? New hair. Same whiteboard, right? Same goddamn drink. Unfortunately, right, I asked for a Mountain Dew Baja Blast again to get through this pain and misery, and they gave me the wrong drink again. Damn it. So, yeah, I don't really have anything to say. I just want to finish this up because I'm losing my mind. I want to move on to something more fun now, right? Which is the music. The music in this film is really good, right? There's 7 original songs. Let's see if I can rattle them off my head. You got How It's Done, then you got Soda Pop or Golden, then Soda Pop, then Take Down, Your Idol, Free, and then What It Sounds Like. I think I got this all done. Not sure though, so it's fine. I don't care. But yeah, I think I got all those in one take. Good job, me. Appreciate myself, So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna face this way so it's easier. There is 7 original songs, and they're all pretty good, right? We're gonna start from the top, go to the bottom. We're gonna start with How It's Done. Now, I won't lie, this is definitely my favorite song in the entire film, I think it's a fantastic song, and it's very, very enjoyable, right? In fact, it's quite scrumptious, if you will, right? I don't know why I use such a fancy word, but I did. So yeah, I like the vocals on this one. I think the lyricism is really good. The way Rumi sings at the start of the song, it's very catchy. I enjoyed it a lot. I think that, the 3 members of Huntrix all have a pretty balanced part in this song, they'll have bigger moments, they'll have smaller moments, it collides together pretty well, in my opinion. I think my favorite part is definitely, the Zoe part when they're flying in the air, the mirror on the wall part, I like that part, It's a cute part. I like that part. I've already been over about a million times why I like Zoe, and yeah, this is just another reason why I like Zoe. After that, though, we get Golden, which think of Golden as like the lead single from like some kind of thing, right? Like album era, right? Of Huntrix, right? It is meant to be like the biggest single from this movie. It is by far the most popular single from this movie, and I mean it kind of deserves it because it's still a really really good song. I think that the production is very like ethereal, floaty, heavenly. You're like, am I dead? Am I going to heaven? No, because I'm a ginger. But anyway, right? Definitely not. So, I still really like this song, Like I said, the ethereal vibe to it, the singing is really good, the lyricism is good. If I had one criticism of this song, sometimes the lyrics are, like, a little bit hard to hear, and you're like, huh? What did they just say? But, that kind of happens across all these songs. It's just kind of, it's obvious here. After that, though, you get, the first song by K-pop Maroon 5, which is Soda Pop. And this song is just, like, really freaky for no reason. Like, you have these lyrics and these lyrics, which are just freaky for no reason. And I get that, oh, Sean, these lyrics about, like, souls. I don't care, bro. If you read these lyrics and you're like, oh, those are about souls and not, like, getting down and dirty, then, like, I don't know how you're reading this because these are definitely just about getting down and dirty. It's just a euphemism, right? It's like, this song is pretty freaky, and that definitely takes it down a bit. But I will say, really like the production here, has, like, the summer vibe, has, like, just summer vibes. It's good, it's fun, whatever, right? I think that Junior does a good job singing here. This is the one time I actually think that all the Saja boys have a pretty good part here, It's just a fun song. It's good. Lyrics are a little bit too freaky for me, though, so it's not, like, my favorite. But it's still, it's still pretty enjoyable. After that, you get Takedown. And Takedown in this movie is, like, think of the Kendrick and Drake beef, right? You know how, like, Kendrick dropped Euphoria, and then Drake dropped Your Idol, right? Or, what? Drake did not drop Your Idol. Drake is not in this movie, I swear Drake is not in this movie. Drake dropped The Heart Part 6, right? Think of Takedown, right, as the response to Heart Part 6 in this universe, right? Where Takedown is basically just the Not Like Us of this film, Like, the whole point of the song is that it's meant to be like a party banger, it's meant to be like a vibe, right? It's like, let's make the most bomb song of all time, right? Let's just put the Saja boys in the ground, right? And, do it pretty well, The beat here is very, very hype and fast-paced, fits the vibe of, like, what they're trying to go for. Lyrics here particularly stand out. I love the fact that in the film, we see them write the lyrics more and more and more, and we finally get the reveal of how they actually sound. That's a good detail. I think Zoe's part here is probably her second best part after how it's done, but she definitely is the stand-up part in this song for me personally, The song is still, like, really, really enjoyable, pretty solid, and I like that song a lot, right? After that, right, in this film, we get, I believe it's Free, right? Which Free is a great song for Genu and Rumi, right? Really advances their romance, and it's why I actually like them in this film. Because before this, I was like, they're cute, right? And they're cool, but, like, they're kind of missing something, right? This song is what they were missing 100%. I think everything in the song is near perfect besides the production. Let's start with the vocals, Rumi's vocals here are fantastic. Her vocals are fantastic across the board. It's not a single song which doesn't do a good job. Genu's vocals here are really, really good. Well, I think, when his verse hits, his flow is like a little bit, a little bit weird. And the first time I thought I was going to go into cardiac arrest and someone would have to save my life, Listening to it now, I actually really like his flow here. I'm not sure it really fits, the song perfectly, but it sounds good, so I don't really care, I'm not a musician. I don't really know. I think it just sounds kind of cool, I like it, it's food for my ears, right? But I think that part of the song is really, really good. I think the lyricism is good. The message is really good, right? I like almost everything in this song, besides the production. And, like, don't get me wrong, don't hate the production here. I just think the production is, like, a little bit, like, basic, especially since we've already seen songs where they have that more ethereal, floaty vibe, with, like, Golden, which Golden is not by no means a love song. It doesn't really give off love song vibes, but I feel like they could have used that more ethereal kind of vibe and feel on this song to really emphasize that they feel like they really love each other instead of just, this basic kind of hi-hat beat, which, it still sounds really good here, but I don't think it really fits the song perfectly like it could have. But overall, not a bad beat. It doesn't really take away from the song, doesn't really add anything. It's just there, but everything on top of it is so good that it adds to that. And so I think, overall, the song is fantastic. After that, we get to the second and final Maroon 5 K-pop band song, which, thank God, because I don't like the Saja boys, I can't emphasize that enough. Your Idol. And I'm pretty sure I already yapped about Your Idol. I do not remember, guys, I'm going to be honest. But just quickly, Your Idol, really like the song. I like the style of it, The beat is really grungy, it's deep, it's meant to emphasize that, hey, man, they're a bunch of demons, right? The singing is really grungy. They really lean into like the raspier parts of their voices, which I think sounds really, really good. Genu is a particular standout here. The rest of the Saja Boys are kind of just they're all doing fine. But I've already made it clear enough that I don't really like them. But they're all doing fine in this song. Genu is just a really one standout. I think that the general vibe of the song is just really, really good. I think some of the lyricism is really interesting. I like how the song is kind of, very dark and grungy, but some of the lyrics are honestly, like, really uplifting and, like, very good, which I think is kind of an interesting dichotomy within the song. And I'm sure it's trying to say something about this film, and the themes. I'm just too stupid to know what those themes are, and I'm not trying to analyze them, right? So, overall, I like the song. Also, quick side note, I probably have mentioned it, but I can't emphasize it enough. Why is the Spotify looping song just a thirst trap? Like, I don't get it. Like, I get it, guys. They're hot, but, like, do we need to emphasize the fact that they're hot the entire time? But then you get to the last song, which is What It Sounds Like. And I think I already mentioned this as well in the last segment for some reason, but I really don't like this song. For some reason, I just can't gel with it. Like, I don't think it really fits here. Don't really like it that much. Still, like, a good song, I can acknowledge that. But I don't like it, It's like Dune Part 1 when I was like 12 years old. Dune Part 1 now is really good. But when I watched it when it came out and I was like, 13 or 12, I was like, damn, this shit is boring. But it's still good, right? That's kind of how I feel about this song. Like, this song is good. I just don't like it. So, yeah, this is definitely the weakest song for me. Objectively, though, it probably is also the weakest song. But it's still, like, a good song. So, yeah. So we made it to the end of the video. We already talked about the style and the animation, the story and the themes, right? We talked about the music. So I've been saying, why is there another segment to this video? And this one's going to be pretty brief, right? And I'm going to put it right here, right? Is Genu hot, right? Now, there's been a lot of discourse online, and by online I mean Pinterest, right? If Genu is hot, right? Now, I, as a straight white man, cannot answer if Genu is hot, right? But I will anyway. So let's look at the question. Is Genu hot? Yes.